So first and foremost, I just want to thank everybody for coming out tonight, or today, or whatever it happens to be. First, can I have anybody that is currently a Memorial Designer, a user of Memorial Designer, to stand up so we can see who's actually using it so far? Okay. Or not maybe a user, an owner of Memorial Day. Oh. Okay, come on in. Come on in.
You guys are the people I want to know.
Those are our Memorial Designers, thank you. And everybody that's going to be a Memorial Designer in the next 15 days, go ahead and stand up. Thank you. We're getting there. Well, anyway, welcome. I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Cameron Moore. Memorial Designer is my company. It's also my product. It's something that we developed because we needed a good solution for designing back when we started in the late 80s. I didn't start it, my brother Shelby actually started back in 1989 with CorelDRAW version 1.1, which is pretty cool. It was version 1.1 when he was 15 years old, and so I would have been 9 maybe. So I wasn't really into it back then, but my dad went to him and said, actually no, you probably went to Dad and said, hey Dad, there's these computer things, and I bet we can actually do this faster and better in a computer. And so that's how it all got started. He looked around and was checking out different software packages that existed. There were CAD programs, there were other ones available. And CorelDRAW was the first of its kind. It had come out on Windows 3.1 back then. Come on in, come on in. And so that's how it got started. We started with version 1 and have built it ever since then. CorelDRAW is currently on version 20. It's actually called 2018. In 2017 they switched over to 2 years for their naming conventions, because instead of doing every other year releases, they've now started doing yearly releases. I myself follow that schedule, so we do yearly releases every year, big releases. And so today, part of what we're going to talk about is what's new. To a lot of you, everything's new, right? So we'll also talk about that as well. But first if it's okay, I'd like to ask anybody that's currently using this program to just kind of raise your hand and let us know how long you've been using it, how difficult or easy it was to learn, what the learning curve was for you. You can say what you came from beforehand if you want to, but you don't have to. That doesn't really matter as much as, kind of the learning curve. That's one question that a lot of people ask is, how hard is this? How long is it going to take? And then the last question is, just how you like it, I guess. So, Austin, I'm going to put you on the spot.
I've been using Memorial Designer for probably a year and a half now, I think, maybe a little longer than that. I started out with Gerber, as a lot of people do, and still do have Gerber just for the purpose of running my plotter, since I run a Gerber plotter. As far as the transition from Gerber to Memorial Designer, the hardest thing for me to get over was just because I was used to Gerber, I was always overcomplicating the process. Something that would take, half an hour to get correct in Gerber, Cameron's got a macro built for it with one click. And it was just the mental block trying to get over that. But like, this is Jared, he works with me. I've sat down with him and, in as little as an afternoon, no, he can't do a lot of the complex things I can do with it, but if I'm out of the shop, he can still put together a rendering for a family that is, it's ready to go. There's nothing that needs to be touched up on it. And that's a guy that has zero design experience. I can't think of a better alternative to Memorial Designer. For me personally, the learning curve for it was not real hard. It seems like whenever I've got something in my mind, I can make it work in that. And
a lot of that comes from, I'm used to, I know Cameron hates to hear me say the word Photoshop, but I was already used to working on the design program that works in layers just the same way as, Corel Draw, MemorialDESIGNER do. But outside of that, it's, for those of you that are thinking about purchasing it, you're not going to find a guy that stands behind his product more than Cameron does. Any question you ever have, one phone call, one email, it's going to get resolved. And then on top of that, the series of YouTube videos that he is always putting out. Anytime you hit a mental block on something, or you just want to try to expand your skills into the next realm of what you're trying to do, just check out his YouTube page. And I mean, it's step by step, and it's incredibly easy to follow through with.
Awesome. Is there a user group page?
There is a MemorialDESIGNER user group page.
Yes, we've got a Facebook group for users. I know not everybody uses Facebook, so that's also why we've got the YouTube channel. And then, as far as user groups though, it is a secret group, so you can't find it by searching. You have to friend me in order for me to add you to the group. You don't have to own the software to be on the group. You just have to, friend me first so that I can add you to it, since it is a secret group. The only reason that it's secret is so that my competition doesn't know who's using the software. But other than that, it's open to anybody as long as you're not in the competition. Perfect. Good question. Yeah, there is a users group. All right. Anybody else that uses MemorialDESIGNER that wants to say who you are and how long? Dan?
I just got it about a month ago. I get frustrated when I can't do what you do. But I think I do the same thing. I overcomplicate it, and then I find out there's a real easy way to make it happen. It's impressive, and as far as rendering, I don't think there's anything that beats it. It's quick, and it's a really nice presentation for the family. So, yeah, I really like it.
Okay. So you've used it for a little over a month. Learning curve's not too bad.
It's like learning any other program. Like there's always a learning the commands and
Sure.
Yeah.
In your first month, what percentage of sales do you use it on? Do you still use a backup like Gerber?
I have, yeah, because
Are you 50,
I fall back to what's comfortable.
Absolutely.
Especially in stress situations.
Yeah. Maybe 50-50 to
In
start.
our area, it was a good time to purchase it because in the wintertime there's not much going on.
Okay.
So I expect though in spring that'll be mostly
Good.
proud of it.
Yeah, depending on the time of year. It's definitely, now is a good time to start, so that you've got time before spring to get up and running. Let's see, anybody else? Great users? I know, you don't have to be shy. This is a family, right, Rob?
Yeah, go on then.
People will understand.
You'll have to use as well.
We'll take yours too.
You'll have to put up with my accent. We've been using MemorialDESIGNER for about 8-10 months now, is it?
Started in.
It was this show last year when I contacted Cameron and said I really wanted to come over to VNA to actually see the software packages, the software shootout then, but it was just too expensive. So not in terms of the cost, but actually the monetary cost, it was the time element, the transfers were awful. So I spoke to Cameron numerous times. I actually emailed everybody who was due on that session, and Cameron was the only one that came back to me. And that's probably a good indication as to the sort of level of support that Cameron will give you. We've hooked up over phone calls and various demos, and we're now selling the package in the UK. I use it personally. We're trying to get my dad to use it. And that possibly covers a little bit of the learning curve. I'm perfectly comfortable working with Photoshop or Corel, and the concepts to me are fairly intuitive. And yet, for my dad, it's going back to what he knows best. And if push comes to shove, the first thing that happens is you drop back to what you know best. But in terms of my experience of Coral, there's far more in there that you don't need to actually get to grips with, to actually be able to use the software. So you can use the software without knowing all the other bits and pieces. And Austin said, oh no, you said it'd be nice to be able to do it the same way that Cameron does it. And yeah, it would be lovely, but you can actually get through it yourself without having to do that to start off with. So creating a design, working with it, creating it for the customer, you can do that without being able to trim and weld and all the rest of the stuff that you do later on. You can actually you can get most of the way there without actually having to know everything.
So I think customer support is a big thing these days. You know, there's, I don't know, anywhere you go in any industry, these things you're talking to a computer, you know, calling up a voicemail or texting. There's not a whole lot of human connection in a lot of what we do. And even though I'm at a computer all day long, and I'm just designing, it is important to me to give good service. And so that's kind of where I put my focus, is on being able to help my customers. Probably too much. I give too much time to helping my customers. But I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing, because what I've heard from other people is that they were lacking that in whatever they were doing before. You know, if they had a question, they had to really go searching for it or whatever. And I've used CorelDRAW myself since I was a teenager, just like Shelby, you know, started as a teenager. So Dan, I've been using it a long time. I'm 39? How old am I? 39. I'm 39 now, so it's, you know, been 20 plus years of using it. And so my left hand actually knows exactly what to do without even thinking about it. And sometimes on my videos, people say, hey, what did you just push? Because my left hand did something I wasn't even thinking about. You know, keyboard shortcuts are really fast, and so I try to memorize and train my hands to work as fast as humanly possible.
I agree with that, but there is access to the whole software without learning a buttload of keyboard shortcuts, and that's my pet hate, is that,
Yeah.
and a lot of the software packages, you need to know all these keyboard shortcuts to be able to use it. With this, you don't. Yeah, sure, it's going to make it faster for you, but for me, there's been 2 keyboard shortcuts that I need to know. Once I've got those 2 memorized, the rest of it, yeah, I could do things quicker if I had the cheap keyboard shortcut, but I can find things out easily enough without.
Thank you. All right, anybody else that currently uses MemorialDESIGNER that wants to say how they like it? Sarah?
Everybody's pretty much said the same thing that I would echo. You know, we were using Composer before, and a lot of the things that took several steps in Composer, I could do with the click of a button on the side. And you know, I've noticed a lot of customers and people that see the Memorial design for the first time, when they see, you know, a black and white drawing, yeah, it looks great, but then they started seeing their color design, like a proof of what it's going to look like, a frosted panel and frosted emblems, and that really speaks volumes because they can see what it's going to actually look like, whereas you don't get that with black and white. And I noticed much better responses to the result.
So from a show of hands, how many people in here design with their customers while they watch? Okay. Not all that many. Of those, how many of you actually do it in full color? When we went to designing live with the customer in full color, when we first started doing that, it was on this Sony 32-inch CRT TV that was like this wide, and you know, it was huge. And the resolution was so pixelated that the grandmas would get up to the screen and then, oh, I can see it. You know, but they really, really liked that they could see it in color, because they didn't have to imagine anymore what it looked like. Not only that, but when you're comparing colors or comparing options, showing different things, they're able to make decisions better. That was what we found. And early on, I don't know how long it's been, when Shelby first started doing this, he shared it with a couple people. Mark Kroom in Caneyville, Kentucky, and there was an Ed O'Brien in Nebraska. He shared it with a couple people. We were also working with the Mark H. Block Company in Ogden, Utah, and they were using it. And so we had a few initial people that were using it, and they really liked it. And so in 2008, I decided to sell it to other companies. And I started out kind of slow because I had no idea what it was going to take in order to support users. And so I started out selling it kind of slow to see what I could handle. And I was pretty impressed by the lack of technical support that I had to do. I think I probably wanted to help people more than they were wanting to be helped, which was, both good and bad. Mostly good because it meant to me that they were, not having really huge issues with it. So that was a good thing for me. So here we are 10 years later, and I'm still at it. Last year, 2 years ago, 2017, we went full time. So that's what we've been doing. That's what I've been doing since then, full time, is Memorial Designer. And like I said, if you have any questions, give me a call, shoot me a text, whatever that the case may be. Does anybody have a question for anybody, any of the users? Do you have your own questions to ask? If you do, just raise your hand. No? You good? Okay. So that's just a quick introduction to everybody here that's currently using it. I think we'll start out first by talking to mostly to you that are interested in learning about what it does and why you want to use it. We'll answer any questions, and then, well, actually, yeah, we'll do that first. So we'll introduce you to how things work, and then we'll talk about some new stuff that's coming out. So we'll do that. If you want to go ahead and hit the lights. We're going to dim it a little bit so that you can see the screen a little bit better. It's not the best projector, so I apologize. We brought this one with us from Wyoming. And the reason is when I called the hotel and said, hey, how much is it to rent a projector for the day? 2 hours, it was $1,200. I was like, no, we're good. Do a second to the bottom, not to the right bottom. All right. Okay.
Your elbow's still in the picture.
Okay, so should we just get started with doing some design? I'm going to pretend like you are a family coming in to buy this home. Okay?
What's the cheapest thing you got?
The cheapest thing I got, 20 inches wide, 20 inches tall, and it is going to be, here we go, we're going to go.
Can you explain as you're going through this?
Yes, absolutely. So, CorelDRAW has a lot of functionality as far as drawing tools and that sort of stuff. And that's the base package that we went with. And then we built on top of that. So a lot of the functionality, especially over here on the left-hand side of the screen, is all standard CorelDRAW tools. This toolbar here across the top, if you can see that one, that's all Memorial Designer tools. And then there's a couple up here on the very top, and then over here on the right, these are called dockers. The reason being is you can dock them up against the screen, you can pull them back out. Can everybody see, if everybody see this okay so far? So drawing a rectangle, drawing a shape like that is pretty easy. All you do is start a new document. You can grab a rectangle, click and drag, and that will draw a rectangle. Then you can come up here and actually tell it how big you want it to be. 24 inches by 12 inches, and hit enter, and it will resize to that specific size. That's one way of doing it, is starting completely from scratch with drawing a rectangle. Another way would be to use one of our tools, which is the shape builder. So if we started with the shape builder, it gives you the option for a circ top, or half circ, rooftop, oval, or flat top. So just yell out, what kind of top should we do?
Rooftop.
Rooftop. Okay, so we're going to do a rooftop. That automatically then defaults to a 1.5 inch drop on either side. You can tell it how much of a drop. You can also, if you want it, rooftops normally going to be the same drop on either side. So we'll just go ahead and click this button so that it will lock those settings on either side. And that way, if we change it on one, it's going to change on both. There's tickers so that you can go up and down by 1/8 inch increments, or you can just type in a size, let's say 6 inches, and it would then go to that 6 inch top drop. Okay? Let's go a little bit taller maybe. Instead, we'll go 48, and we'll go 24 wide. Oop, that's backwards. 48 tall, 24 wide. Yeah, something like that. Okay, sound good? Go ahead, Sarah.
Kevin's watching live on Facebook. He says that, he can't see the screen. Like,
I'll scoot over a little bit. Alright. So for those that didn't make it out to the group, we're also Facebook Living, so hopefully they can see it. But you should have paid to come, sorry. Okay. I'm not saying anything bad about you, I'm just saying. Should have paid to come. Okay. You can also, in this, you can add bases, just tapered bases right now at this point, but you can choose your size if you wanted to go 6 or 7 inches, 10 inches tall, whatever you want your taper to be. You can also do a base length. So let's say we wanted to go, instead of 48, we wanted to go 54 inches. You can do that, and it's gonna space those bases evenly. You can also add in a polished margin if you wanted to do like 1.5 inch polished margin, it would throw it down there. Okay? Is our die and base looking okay so far? Yes. All right.
Cameron, are you in one layer right now?
Yes, so this is all on one layer. I actually prefer to work on one layer.
Okay.
Because if you work on more than one layer, it starts getting complicated, and my brain's not that, And actually, so in CorelDRAW, you have, if you're thinking about Photoshop layers, these objects would actually kind of equate to a layer in Photoshop because they're individual from each other. And so CorelDRAW has layers. It's also got pages. It's got a lot more depth to it than
But
just.
luckily you're not using.
Yeah, for the most part. There are uses for layers, but for the most part, I'm not going to touch them. Yeah, so I just use the objects over here on the right, which is called the Object Manager. It shows me all my objects, but they're all on one layer. Yeah, but you can use multiple layers. It's just, for everybody in this room, other than maybe Austin, I don't know, most other people probably wouldn't use multiple layers. Just stick with the objects right here. Okay, so if we want to add text next, right now you just grab the text tool, just like any other program. You can choose a font. The way that CorelDRAW works is you can use any OpenType or TrueType font that installs into Windows. Okay. One of the really neat things is that you don't actually have to. There's a font manager that comes with CorelDRAW, and so you can actually use fonts that aren't installed on your machine as long as you have them in Font Manager listed as ones you want to use. You can also, if you just download a font off the internet, if you go to fonts.com or whatever it happens to be and purchase one and you want to use it on the fly, you don't have to close the program down to redo it. You can just start using that font. One thing with the fonts is that most non-monument specific fonts are sized a little bit differently than how we do things in monuments. And so I have monument specific fonts that I've created. I also resell some fonts from the Monument Lettering Center. And what he's done is he's taken the SKS stamps and the Presto Cut and those stamps and digitized them. And he's got currently 40 of those, so you can see here art line and broad double outline and modern outline. So he's got a lot of different fonts in here. I'm supporting the Monument Lettering Center fonts as much as I can because, one, I don't like making fonts. It is really hard. It takes a long time, and to make a really good font, it takes a lot of work. So my particular fonts that I've made have the just standard characters that you see on the keyboard. They don't have accents. They don't have upper and lower case. They don't, so I'm not trying to talk up my own fonts, but I will talk up Monument Lettering Center's because his have upper and lower cases. His also have some other features. So let me show you here one really quick. So I'm going to grab this Artline font and just click, and let's say 3 inches, and then give me a last name. Smith, that's a hard one. Okay, Smith. Okay. So we've got this Smith name, and if we wanted to, we could build a panel around this name if you wanted a panel. Over here in the Memorial Designer Docker, we have a standard panels section. So we can do a frost line, a single line with frost, or a double line. Those are all standard options. You can also scallop the edges if you want to. And you've got settings for how much space you have between top and bottom. I'll just do 1/2 inch here. And click apply. And so it will build that panel around my text for me. When I'm aligning things, I don't typically align things on an X or a Y coordinate. That's not the way my brain works. Some people, that's perfectly fine. When you use the shape builder, it actually centers your die on 0. So if I were to come over and say X is 0 and hit enter, it'll move it over to 0. That's not the way that I work. When I work, I align to something else. So I'll hold shift and I'll click on the stone and then I'll hit C to center it, and it will then center to the die. So that's what I typically do is center to something that's already existing. Any questions on that?
Can you throw in lines to work with? So if you're looking at that letter, you're saying, okay, I'm thinking it's 48 inches high, but it says somewhere around 36, 32. Can I put like a center line up through the stone?
You
And then
can.
start building crosshairs that I can throw that onto and control where I'm playing and what I'm going to be adding. So I'm starting to break it down into fractions as I work with it.
Yep, so there's different ways of doing that. One of which is to use guidelines. So over here on the edge of the rulers, if you click and drag a ruler, it's going to create a guideline. Okay, and you can, there's also something called snapping. So you can snap to objects, you can snap to guidelines, you can snap to page. You can snap to different things. So if I drug this over, I could snap it to the middle of my die and work off of that. You can also, if you double click on your guidelines, you can tell them exact XY coordinates that you want them to go off of. There's that option. There's also a really neat option called alignment and dynamic guides, which dynamically, when you drag things, make sure there we go, alignment guides. I don't know if it'll pop up here or not. Okay, so it's kind of hard to see. I don't know if you can see it or not, but as I drag, it's going to pop up a dynamic guide based on other things that are in the object or other things that are on the page. So those are different options for aligning things. But yeah, you can definitely do that. Good question. Okay. I don't like guidelines myself because it distracts me from what I'm doing. So I've got a quick button here that deletes all guidelines from the page at once. So in case you do decide to use them, you can just delete them all. And if at any time you have any questions, please just raise your hand and I'll answer anything that you got. Okay, so we got Smith as our last name. Let's go ahead and make a first name though. And John W. All right. 2 John W. Smith. When was he born?
July 13th.
July 13th. You can set your alignment for your text. I'm going to center align it, so when I hit enter, it's just going to go down to the next. Oh, look at that. In this particular font, the numerals are.
Good choice on fonts.
Heartline. What in the heartline is that? Brendan, if you're watching, can you please? I'm gonna switch fonts. We're no longer in that.
We'll be able to match that in the cemetery later.
Yes. 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 we
Call
can.
them a reason to use.
Yeah, exactly. We'll go Lombard. Okay. So, got John W. When you type in a name and then hit enter, it's going to just give you another line of text. But I usually break those lines into separate lines so I can work with the lines individually quicker. So that way, if I grab this one, I can change the text value on that to 1 inch instead of 2 inch or 1.5 inches. So I'll just type it in. Type it in 1.5, something like that. I can duplicate that for a death date. Turn off my alignment guides here real quick. Okay, so I got that. Spacing. If you want to be able to space in between lines of text easily, you grab all 3 lines of text or however many lines of text you have. And back in the Memorial Designer Docker, there is a spacing section. So you would just tell it how much spacing you want to put between each line of text, let's say 1 inch, and hit apply, and it will then space each of those lines 1 inch apart from each other. So that's pretty simple. Okay. Next thing is, you want any artwork? Yes. A what? A rose. A rose, okay. So there's a couple different ways to find artwork. If you go with my collection of artwork, I've got a classic collection of artwork that all of my pieces are individually numbered, and there's a design book that goes along with them, so the customer can be looking through that and just choose a number. We'll go ahead and instead go to find the artwork itself. We just installed this on here, so I don't even know if it's been cataloged or not, but we're going to go ahead and try and do a search and see what happens. So you said a rose? Okay. So one of the things is you can add tags or keywords to designs. So I've already added keywords and tags to all of my designs, at least in this collection, and you can do the same thing with your artwork if you want to. You just add a tag. You can also see thumbnails of those designs. So if I scroll through here and scroll down, it's going to show me any design that's tagged with that word rose. So we can just grab one of these. We'll grab this one. All right. Maybe I don't want that panel anymore, so I'm gonna just delete that panel. Okay. Mirroring is something that you can also do if you want that same design on both sides of your design. You just grab it and hit M. And what it does is it will mirror to the opposite side of whatever it finds behind it. So since it found the dye's colored in, and so it's going to find that and it's going to mirror on the opposite side of that dye. If you want to mirror on something else, you can, or if it doesn't find anything, if I have it not over the top of anything and I hit M, it's going to say, well, what do you want to mirror off of? And then you have to click on something and it will mirror then off of whatever you click on. So there's different ways that you can mirror. You can also, if you wanted to, specifically mirror off of something also, if you hold Control before you click on the button. So there's different ways you can go about doing that. So this particular design that we had, we shrunk it down, right? So if I measure the V lines on this design, if I go from here to here, it's 0.067 inches. So that is not quite the sandblastable width that I want. I typically want a 0.09 sandblast width. So what you can do is you can grab both pieces of your design and combine them together so that when you grab them with your reference line, you can hit the blastable tool. And what it does is it measures between the 0.067 and the 0.09 you want to get to, and it does some math to figure out how much it needs to expand in order to get back to the 0.09. Does that make sense?
Does it do it with, so you did the V lines from cross. When you do that, does it also change the thickness of the lines for like the lines in the leaves, for example? Was it doing that at the same time?
It's going to do anything that's combined together. I combined everything together before doing it. So if I wanted to leave the veins out or whatever, I can leave those out of my selection, out of my combining. You can also see when I did it, if you look at these circles here on the inside, so I'm going to redo, you can see how they got a little bit small. So if I wanted to, I could break this apart, and these pieces here, if I wanted to not have that happen to them, I can go ahead and hide them, I believe. Let's try that. And then we'll grab all of these, combine that together, and then we'll use blastable on that. And then the parts that I hid, I can just say unhide, and they're gonna come back. And they won't, they haven't been touched, so they're gonna stay that same size. So you can do the same thing with veins or, that sort of stuff. If you notice, this little section here actually got lighter. You can see that. You're gonna want that to show through to the polish for the most part. And so there's another tool here called Knockout, where you just click on it, and click on those pieces you want to then show through to the polish, and that way you can knock them back out. So you can see the difference though, if we zoom into these, how the one on the left is, the V lines are a bit thicker. For those of you that aren't using Memorial Designer currently, how long do you think that would take to get that back to 0.09 for you? Or do you ever do it?
I mean, for something like that, for me, I would have to throw off all my lines. Then I would have to trim them all together. And that could, for something like that, I could probably rip through that in, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 minutes, just to make sure everything's good to go.
Good. 10 or 15
I mean,
minutes.
like that's like 2 minutes, if that a minute.
Yeah.
So then what would you do? Just mirror that back to the other
Yeah,
side?
so then you just get rid of this one. You don't need that anymore. You grab this one here, you hit M, and you're back to good. Yeah.
When you're expanding the V line, so it's going from 0.07 to 0.09, is it throwing it always outside the existing design?
Okay, so it's going in both directions. Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
I guess that'd be 0.01 actually, that would be one.
Yeah, it's going both ways. Yeah. So it's going off center. Yeah. So when I combine these two together, and if I were to drag in a guideline here and a guideline here, so that right now that's how thick it is. If I were to make it thicker, you'll see, it's getting thicker on both sides of that. Bold object is another similar functionality, except that what bold object does is it always gets bigger by a certain amount. Instead of trying to get to 0.09, it's just going to make it bigger by, right now I have it set for 0.015 inches. Every time I click on it, it's just going to get that much bolder, that much bolder, that much bolder. So that's what bold object is for, is especially if you've got text or something that the serifs are too small or it's too thin in a certain area, you can just hit that key and it will, make it a bit bolder. When you're working with text and you hit the V button, the bold object button, it actually converts the text to curves. So there's a plus and a downside to that. The downside is it's not editable as text anymore. The plus side is that it's really fast to bold it. And so if I'm going to do it on text, I'll usually actually make a copy of my text right over the top of the original and just bold the one that I want to use. Or I'll show you this here really quick. Another way to do this. And that is that I'm not going to actually really bold it until I'm working on my plot page. And I'll show you what the plot page is here in a second. So right now we've got designs, we've got names. Is there anything else you want to see on your stone? Photographs? Anybody want to add a cameo? I've got a quick button for a picture here. It's just going to throw in an oval. And then I can go and find a picture to throw in that. And I don't think I added any pictures on this, so I'm just going to go to the internet and find a picture. Who should we put on here? Image of old man. Alright, we're going to go with this guy. So if somebody were to email you a picture, or somebody were to, give you something to scan, you can scan in pieces. Yeah, we're good. Wait a minute, it's getting charged from the USB, so we're good. Okay, so we got this old man's picture, and all you do is you just drag and drop it over the top of this oval. It'll put it inside the oval for you. And then there's a quick button for filling it proportionately so that it will shrink it down and put it right next together. That was a bit easier. If you look at this image, we took this off the internet, right? So it's actually got watermarks and that sort of stuff. I mean, you're not usually going to get a picture that's got watermarks, but a lot of times you'll get pictures that have cracks or they'll have something in them that you don't want. One of the great powerful tools about CorelDRAW's graphics suite is you don't only get CorelDRAW, you also get Corel Photo Paint, which is going to be similar to Photoshop. Not quite as powerful, it hasn't received as much development as Photoshop, but for what we do in monuments, it actually has quite a bit of functionality and power. And so you can take this design and you can say, edit bitmap. And what it does is it pulls it out of CorelDRAW and puts it automatically into Corel Photo Paint for you so that you can then manipulate that bitmap with photo editing tools. So I can come in here and I can clone this, give it a little bit more of a feather. Wait, that's not feather, this is feather. This is transparency. Another thing that you can do if you want to, I personally like to have my photo paint in a black as opposed to a white workspace, or that way I can keep the two programs separate from each other a bit easier, and it just looks better to me. But I can come in here and make some edits or touch things up, that sort of stuff. If I noticed they didn't have any hair, I can come in here and draw in some hair. Whatever it happens to be. You can make all those photo edits, and then when you're done editing, you just say finish editing and say yes, and it will automatically then send it back into CorelDRAW for you, and it's already edited. You don't have to go to save, you don't have to import, export, any of that stuff. That's one of the things that I really like is the workflow, where you're going from one thing to the other back and forth. So we've got a photo there, and I think, that's pretty good. Bring that down just a little bit. Okay, so the next thing is granite colors. So if we go back to the MemorialDESIGNER Docker here, and we've got some granite fills over on the side. Any particular granite color you want to see?
Marble.
Bahama blue.
Bahama blue, okay. So this is actually, for those of you that already use MemorialDESIGNER, this is the latest version that we're working on. So it has a granite fills section here that has all of the available colors, but not only are they all of the colors, but if Bahama blue is your favorite color, you can right click on it and say favorite, and it's gonna put it up here into your favorites list. So that if that's all you wanna show is just favorite colors, that's all it's gonna show, okay? You can also resize these swatches if you want them little, or if you want them big, you can resize your color swatches. So Bahama Blue is our favorite, so we'll go ahead and click on it, and now we have it in Bahama Blue. You're gonna also change the text then if you want to. Once again, another new feature, and this was added last night because Rob asked for it. If you click on this little stone color, what is it called? Stain color, you right click on it, you can you say what you want it to be filled in with. So let's say we want to fill it in with gold. We can click on gold and it will fill it in with gold. I don't know how gold that is on that screen. It's a lot easier to see on this one, but anyway.
Could we maybe do the alien frosted inlay with lower lettering in a panel, just so we can see the process of each of those?
Sure. So frosted inlaid, you want the inside frosted, the outside with a hard line? Okay, so I've got a frosted outline button where you just click on that, and what it does is it will create the outline around your text, and then the inside portion here will then be frosted. So that's that, right? And then the next is if we grab this and we built a panel around it. So let's just do a double line scallop panel. And move it there, and once again we'll just fill it all. It remembered that we wanted gold for our color, and I didn't, when I filled it in, I set that for everything, so that's why it filled all of our gold in. I'll go back to black there. Maybe I can right click, go back to black. Alright. Is that kind of what you were asking for? Something like that. Okay. Let's see. We can add in some flowers if you want to. Nothing fancy, but you can add in flowers. And mirror those. I'm going to go ahead and hold control when I click on the mirror button. Control. You can also add in backgrounds. So it comes with two standard backgrounds that are really just two files with, blue to black gradients. The whole purpose of this is that you can add in your own copyright or your own footer information, that sort of stuff, so that when you click on that button, it will easily bring that in. You can also change it to maybe a cemetery background or, whatever you wanted it to be. If you hold control while you click on that, it's going to do a different one, so you can have two different default templates just to make it easy for you. When you've got everything done the way that you want it to be done and you want to send it off to your customer, if you're designing live with your customer like we are here, what you would do is you just hit this quick print button and it automatically sends it to your default printer, asks you how many copies. I don't know that it's got a default printer, but it'll ask you how many copies you want to do, and then it will automatically send it to your default printer, which in this case right now is OneNote. But if you had a default printer, it would go ahead and send it straight to that printer. And if you want to send it out to a customer via email, you can just click on this. Well, we don't have it saved yet, so we'll go ahead and save it. I'm going to save this to, what is our name here? Smith John W. And Shelby's going to say, no, don't save, don't save. That's why we've been playing with this. It errors out. But one of the things that it does do is if it errors out, it's going to say, would you like to report that error to us? And you can say yes, and then it will send us a little report saying, hey, something went wrong, check into it. And then we'll look into it and see what we can fix. Like I said, right now it's going to throw an error because we've been playing with it.
Karen, what's involved in taking a picture of a family's lot when they're mining on the lot?
You go out and take a picture of the lot. One of the things that I do when I take a picture is I make sure I put something in the picture that I know the size of. So I'll put down a ruler, a yardstick, whatever it happens to be, so that I can visually, or so that I can match up my photo to real life. Because when you take a picture, when you import that picture, it's not going to be, real life. So. Let's see here. Let's just do this one for instance. Copy picture. So he went out and took a picture. Okay. And when we took the picture, we knew that this stone right here, or this measurement, was actually 18 inches wide. What we can do is we can draw a line. We can say from here to here in my photo, I know that's 18 inches. And so I will auto size this to 18 inches. And if you want to, you can delete the reference line. You can also straighten it if it's crooked along the horizontal axis. It's not really in this case, but then you hit apply. And what it does is it then resizes that picture to that life size, or that whatever in the picture is real. And then you can grab your stone and put it over the top. Send this one to the back. So this obviously isn't real sizing, but that's what it takes. I used to do that a lot for my customers. We had the ability, our shop was right across the street from the cemetery, and so I could easily go out and take photos of people's graves, and then when they came in, I could lay the stone out on the grave, and they could say, well, I want it to be gray because the one right next to it is gray. But I could say, okay, but do you really want it in gray, or do you want it maybe in red so that it stands out, from the gray one next to it? Or, yeah, that's a 2-foot monument. Are you sure you want that 2-foot monument, or do you want something a little bit nicer? And oftentimes I would say, oh yeah, okay, what was the cheapest one you wanted? The 20 by 20, flat marker in the beginning. When you have a 20-inch flat marker that you show in the ground, like this, next to, a full die or whatever, they're more apt to do something different.
Getting back to the color, on the bases, a lot of times we'll have like a Stanstead base on whatever color.
Yeah, so you Canadians are kind of weird.
Base color.
I don't know what it is with Canadians, but they'll do like gray bases underneath red dyes. But yeah, you can.
That's just all I want, right?
Yeah. So colors based on whatever you have selected. So if I select the base, it'll just color the base.
Okay.
Yeah, good question. Dan?
What if you wanted a frosted line that follows the contour at the top that connects the two crosses? How hard would it be? You just draw a line and then...
So you want a frosted line?
That would maybe go up and follow the contour and then come back down and meet it across.
Yep.
You just want a frosted bar along the contour?
Right.
All right, so what you can do is you take the stone itself, right? And you grab what's called a contour tool. And you can just drag that in however much you want it to come in. So, and you can drag, it's interactive, so you can drag it, or you can type in an amount. So if I want it to come in 3 inches from the outside, you can contour it in 3 inches. And then just break that contour apart from the original. And now we've got a line. And you just want just a line going up this way?
Yeah.
Okay. So then in that case, what I would probably do, I don't know, maybe somebody else would do it differently, but I would just grab the pieces I don't want and delete those, and then, start working off of this, I guess. Change the thickness of it to 1/4 of an inch, or however big I want that inside bar to be, 1/2 an inch, whatever. Convert that to an outline. And then what I can do is I can use my standard panels on that, or I can use my frosted outline on it. Either one works. And it would then just, give it that frosted outline look. these pieces here, I can grab them and bring them up, or I could have gone down the side, you know, whatever would look nicer. Another thing too, if you're working on cemetery backgrounds or whatever it happens to be, you can right click on that object and you can say lock. That way you don't accidentally grab that image behind it. So when you're working on something, you can work on it this way. Is that kind of what you were wanting, Dan?
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know. Brendan, would you do something different or the same?
I usually just do the contour and then I run the whole panel script and then go and trim it off.
Oh, and then you cut it? Okay, so that's,
Now where it crosses the cross, where the lines may overlap across, what do you do so that it's plottable?
okay.
Is it like a welding tool that you've created?
Yeah, so I don't worry about plottable until, I don't worry about plottable until I actually go to cut. Because the reason for that is, I'm okay with things overlapping. Because it actually makes it easier, for me to move things around, right? So I can grab this and I can move it around as long as it's just overlapping. I don't worry about that. When it comes time to actually cut it, I will grab everything I've got and I'll click on my plot page button. So what that does is it creates a second page for me. Down here along the bottom are pages. And so I've got my original page and I've got my plot page. So I can come in here and grab these pieces and weld them to this piece in order to get that cuttable. You do the same thing on this side. And I realize these are different line thicknesses because I was messing with it earlier. But we can go ahead and weld those together. And because this is on its own page and it's separated from our original, I could go back to the original and, you know, in a year or so, if John's brother died and he wanted to have a stone, but he really didn't like those crosses, we can delete those and do something different. So that's why I like to keep things in layers, is because it's a lot easier to manipulate the pieces. And then when it comes time to cutting, you just weld it all together.
Which is a real advantage if you, when you go to cut and you're measuring your actual stone size. Your stone size, you know, your tolerance, it ends up, that stone is a half inch smaller than what you designed it as, then you can bring your images in to make it so it's on the actual stone.
Right. Yep, absolutely. Did that answer the question?
Yes, it did.
Okay. The plot page and the regular page, they all get saved in the file, the same file, so it's one file that you're saving. And let's say that John decided, you know, he didn't decide right now that he wanted to go with this stone, and he comes back in a week from now and says, I want to see something different. You know, I really don't like that picture of me with that toupee, so can we get rid of that picture? You can grab what you want to keep and say, build a revision page, and it will then create a new page for you with what you want to keep, and that way we can get rid of this toupee, we don't want to have that anymore, and we can, you know, change the color or whatever it happens to be. And so what you can do is you can make all those changes on your revision page, and it doesn't mess with your original. So down here, it actually, the page gets renamed to a date. Today's the 9th, so it's actually going to say the 9th on both pages. But if it was a week from now, it would go ahead and say, you know, this is the 9th instead of today's date. And so that way you can keep track of revisions and stuff that way. I don't like to do a lot of revisions, but it happens, right? So, yeah, good question. All right. Anything else? Any other questions that you have? No, good.
Do you send out all color photos to your families to look at? Like, if they want 4 different versions of the same thing?
I do.
And you send them virtually, or do you print them hard copy and then mail them off? Because some people touchy-feely come in and want to look at them. To meet with you. It's out of shop.
When we had our own shop, most of our stuff was walk-in customers, and so we would do it just right then and there for them. You know, we'd show them all the different colors and different versions. I would sometimes send them home with a proof, but most of the time, it did get to the point where I went out to the cemetery one day, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's the design that I spent, 4 weeks with this guy on, and it was done, the funeral home in the same town had gotten it from Cold Springs, and it was the design that I had, pretty much the design that I had done, and so I decided at that time, well, okay, this doesn't happen all too often, but maybe I'll just, require a deposit when they leave with the picture. It just depends.
So, but I guess my feeling was, if you were printing off all of these color prints versus the old traditional line drawings.
I personally printed them off. Yeah, or just, let them, or just email them to them. But printing wasn't too big of a deal for me. We had a nice Dell laser printer that printed out really fast and, wasn't super expensive for the toner.
How do you turn it into like a JPEG or something to email?
So JPEG, you just grab it and hit this JPEG button, okay? And what it will do is it will automatically send it to your proofs folder. So if I go to the proofs folder, it's going to be in there. If you want to do multiple versions, so if I wanted to do this one, in a different color, for instance, I could grab whatever I wanted to do and hit the JPEG button again, and it's just going to name it the same name as I have my file saved already. And so when I go back to my proofs folder, there's going to be two versions. There's going to be the regular one and then -2. As many times as you click it, it's going to do -2, -3, -4, -5, so that you can easily just email those off. If you use Outlook for your email, you can even simplify it even further, but we've got a macro that will automatically open up Outlook, attach the email, change the subject to whatever you want, and then you can send it off from there. And if I double click on this and view it in my photos, you can see kind of how that looks. It's built for 1920 pixels wide, so that's standard HD resolution. File size is 467 kilobytes. So it's not too big to email, but it's nice enough to look at. You can also change, if you don't want it to be quite that high resolution, you can hold Control when you click on the button, and it will go to a lower resolution image. Instead of the HD res, it'll be just SD res, so it's a little bit smaller, but still pretty nice.
Do you have a way to a macro for Stone Spot?
I do have a macro for Stone Spot, yeah. Anybody in here actually currently using Stone Spot? Oh, there's half. It's like Patriots and Rams. Yeah, so Stone Spot's really cool. I don't know, if you're not using Stone Spot, it's an online order management system. And we started about 1.5 years ago to integrate into Stone Spot. And so what you can do is, it's currently in beta right now, so let me log out and I'll show you how it works. So once again, over here on the side, these are called Dockers. I've got a Stone Spot Connect Docker where I can type in my Stone Spot login, and it will log me into my Stone Spot account directly within MemorialDESIGNER here. I don't have to go to the website. The reason for that is, as a designer, I don't want to be distracted by all of the other stuff that I don't need to see. I want to be as efficient as possible, okay? And so if I start a new design here, I'll just click OK. If I click on one of these designs, let's just say this Babaloo, William, whatever, it will tell me down here all the information that's in that design. So I can see that his name is William Babaloo. I can see that the design number 300 is what they want to use. If there's a picture order, it will be there. That one doesn't have a picture order, so let's see if we can find one that does. Here we go. So here's one that's got a picture order. So it gives me all that information, and it's pulling that all from Stone Spot. If I hit Create Design, what it does is it loads up that design number 348. It finds that the text is Cameron Todd Moore, and it actually fills in that design for me so that I don't have to retype any of that text. And the reason that I do that is so that you don't, one is it makes it faster, but two is that you're prone to errors every time you retype something or copy and paste or whatever you're doing, you're prone to making a mistake. And so by having it just pull that information from Stone Spot, you're not gonna end up with as many errors. I don't know if we have it hooked up to fill it in with granite colors, but let's go ahead and see if we've got, this says that it's tropical green. No, I don't have that currently hooked up, so it's not gonna work. But when we hook it up correctly, it will actually go ahead and fill in the design with tropical green as well. I'll go ahead and just do that manually here. So I can fill it in with tropical green. And then I can grab it, instead of saving it to a file and uploading it to Stone Spot, I can just go ahead and say, send an image to Stone Spot, and it will automatically upload it back to my Stone Spot account, so I don't have to go, saving it and uploading it and that sort of stuff. So if I look in my upload files of this design, you'll see that it's right there, it says proof.
Did it uploads actually not the approval section?
Yes, it uploads it to the upload so that somebody can double check it and make sure that it should go to approvals. Yeah. You've also got your different buckets, so that was the needs of proof bucket, but if you needed to go to accepted proofs or rejected proofs, you can filter by buckets so that you can see the ones that you want. As a designer, those are the 4 buckets I look at, so those are the only ones I want to see. But you can also click all orders also and see everything. So it's currently in beta, so it's not completely finished yet. If you want to use it right now, since it's in beta, it's free to use. When it gets released, it'll only be $250 to use, but I think it's well worth the time saving that it gives you. But, good question. Let's see. Anybody else? In the way back.
How would you show frosted versus honed in a design?
Frosted versus polished?
Yeah. Or no, honed. Just
honed. So honed is a little different animal. I don't have a quick button for doing honed stuff. But what you can do is, if you've already designed something like this, I can grab this this part of the design and just double click on the frosted part of it, and I can change how bright it is. So it's going to look a little bit different than the frosted part. It's not going to be quite polished. It's not going to be quite frosted. So you can do that sort of stuff.
Simulate honed or fluid or whatever.
Yeah.
Changing that shade slightly.
We're going to work on actually making that a quick button, but for now it takes a couple clicks. We had 2 other questions.
I might have missed this, but when you're putting the panel in, can you adjust that SERP on the panel to match the SERP on the stone?
Yeah, so if we would just start from the SERP of the stone itself, and then come in, so we'll just bring it in like this, however much you want.
All right.
You can break that apart, and then you just go back to your your panels builder here and say what style you want. So if I wanted it to be a double line, I just hit apply and it will then rebuild it.
Okay, great.
But that one matches. Oops, it's got scallops in the corner, so we don't want to redo that. We don't want to do scallops bottom. But yeah, so you can do that.
Again, if you bring in a photo of the actual monument and you know the size of it and you put it there, you can design that SERP so that when you create your panel, it's going to match the stone exactly.
Yeah, you can work out photos, you can bring in photos easily, or you can just do measurements, and when you're doing your shape builder, you can say how big the drop is on one side versus the other.
Because we all know that when you build that panel, it's not going to match the SERP exactly based on who's manufacturing your SERP.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
So is that how you import unique shapes that you have? It's like
Absolutely.
buy a unique shape off the convention floor.
So if you bought a unique shape, you take a picture of your monument, you bring it in, and you can draw your unique shape to match the stone that you purchased.
Yeah. When you're taking a photograph, right, a lot of times not exactly straight on. It's a little bit crooked, a little bit whatever. So if you put in a square, for instance, in your photo, in both corners or whatever it happens to be, let's just grab this one here. That's not even, let's go back. But if it's off just a little bit, you can skew that photo. And so that's another great thing about CorelDRAW that I really like, is not only can it do vector work, but it can also do bitmap work as well. If my internet connection works, here we go. Copy. So I know this isn't the best reference, but if we had a photograph like this that we took, and in the photograph itself we had a square here, then what you can do is you can take that photo and go to effects and say add perspective. So you can drag this until you have it then perspective-wise back to square with how it ought to be. So you can square it up in order to then trace around it appropriately. Obviously, the better you take your photo, the better it's going to work. But if you put something in there to use as a reference, it works out really well.
So if you look at our designs that come with it, you see the unique shapes that are in there. That's how we developed the shapes. We took Supernova's stock. We took pictures of all their stock and created their shapes.
What if you create a new shape or something, a one-off?
You can absolutely create whatever you want. There's lots of drawing tools. So anything that you want to create, you can just, click and start here and come up this way and draw, whatever you want to do, you can draw it out and use that as your shape. And just, use that as your shape. So anything that you want to draw, you can draw it.
Then you send that to your vendor and they can cut the shape right from that.
Yeah.
Dimensioning tools.
If you want to be able to show that to your vendor for dimensions and that sort of stuff.
To the customer.
To the customer, you can do that as well.
Put sign-offs
Yeah,
on there.
so over
and
here-
descriptions of what the size of
Sure.
the pieces are and colors.
Yep, you got horizontal and vertical dimensions, so you can just click and drag from here to here, and it's going to come off and show you, the dimension from there to there. You can resize the default for your, how big this text is. You can actually change it by default, but you can also just change it here. So you can give dimensions.
Can you type in though, like an area, a disclaimer, propriety, design?
Yeah.
Tablet size is this, page
Absolutely.
size is that?
Yep.
You have some format, it's not like text, but you can go back and do that sort of.
Usually I'll just make a templated bottom part, and then I'll just, change all that stuff. With StoneSpot Connect, it actually is, the functionality is built to do that for you. So if I were to come back to StoneSpot Connect and there's this one here, right? If I said create template, and I'm hoping I have this file installed, but you can say create template, and it will go and bring in or crash. Because it's not open, it was installed. The file obviously doesn't exist in beta. Yeah, but no, the idea is that it will bring in your template and automatically put in the sizing and stuff for you based off of what it had in StoneSpot. One good thing about CorelDRAW is, auto save, so it saves some of the stuff that I hadn't saved. So I didn't lose this job anyway that was open, my most recent one. No, good question. What else?
Just to kind of build on top of what she was asking you right there, the approval that I have my customer sign, it has my disclaimer, it says, you're responsible for any errors or anything like that. That whole little text box along with the signature, estimated date of delivery and everything, I I've got saved on background, I can add in, like, you know, I'll hold down control and hit the background, bring the live background in, and then it's got all my information on there, so it automatically goes, so I can just print that off right there, have them sign it.
So you're not printing in cemetery pictures with that, you're just kind of doing the cloudy blue?
Say that again?
You're not doing like cemetery photos, you're doing like cloudy blue, the first two, I
Oh,
guess,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but you can change those templates. So if I were to go into my documents and go to my Memorial Designer folder and import there, those templates are here, BK1, BK2. So if I come into this template and I change this to have my disclaimer, information and sizing and all of that sort of stuff, and save over the top of that, then when I'm back in my design and I hit my button, it will then bring that in. So you can change your, that template as much as you want, so that it's going to just bring that in for you, and then work off of that. All right. Sarah?
What about like, we did like gold litho and white litho and everything, like design. What about like no litho, like showing shadow and stuff? Like, does that bevel button next to the frosted thing do that?
That's kind of one of the reasons that I have the bevel button is to show sandblast depth. One thing with the bevel button is it is an effect. So if I have this disclaimer text and I click on bevel, it's going to show me a little bit of depth to my letter. But it's an effect applied to that text. And so what I have to do in order to make it show through to what's underneath it is I have to break it apart from that text. And that way I can take this and I can make it a little bit more transparent so that when I fill in my design with stone, or with the stone color, then it's going to be a little bit more transparent and see-through. And I can mess with how dark or light that happens to be.
And is the text still editable when
The bitmap itself, I broke it apart, so it's not editable as text, but I kept the original text. So if I deleted this and went to my wireframe, the text is still there. Yeah. Dan, I think you had a question.
On your first drawing with the cross, let's suppose the family wants the crossbar longer. I noticed the B lines come down, if you distort the cross one way, not proportionally, you have a thicker, wider B line. How do you handle that?
Yeah, so if you've got a cross, and we're just going to bring one, anybody remember the number? Probably not, that was a while back. Let's search for a cross here. Let's just go with this one. Okay. So what you're saying is if you actually just drag this down, which I don't suggest you do, but if you do that, this then becomes too thick on the bottom, right? Because you're stretching it, and that's not what we want to do. So in order to stretch that out longer, instead of stretching it, what you would do is you would grab the nodes themselves that make up the pieces. So you can grab these two nodes and these two nodes here, and you can drag those nodes down, and that will then elongate that piece without stretching anything else. Make sense?
Yeah, it does now.
Would you demonstrate the final date in this program?
E-final date. So I don't really have an e-final date picture, but basically what e-final date is you go out and take a picture with putting a card on the stone, so that what e-final date does is it will rotate and fix the skew for you automatically.
I currently use it
So-
in my UCAT,
So once you do that, all you do is then import that photo into the program and then work over the top of it. So I don't have an e-final date.
So let me just, from my end, it's like you would create the box, the size that eFinal Date told you the original photo was.
Okay.
And then I would image trace. That's
Okay.
how I would bring that photo in as a JPEG in my UCAT.
Yeah, with this, you just hit import and bring it in.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, because eFinal date is gonna actually size it for you. So if you just import it at the size that it saves it at, it's gonna be the right size. Yeah. And then let me look, just go here real quick. I think there's another question over here from the side, was there? Maybe? No? Go ahead.
You said there's a plotter page.
Yes.
What type of plotter? Do you use a Gerber plotter and plot right from that page? Or do you need to import everything into
So the Gerber cutter does not have a driver that works with CorelDRAW natively. There is a third-party application called CoCut that should be able to run a Gerber cutter. I've done it on the GS15, I haven't done it on the other ones. I know they've got a driver for the HS750. I'm not sure about the GS750. Or the other option is, if you already have Gerber, and I think Austin was saying that this is kind of what he does with his, is if I were to open this up, I'll just open up a design here. And so this design, I'll throw to a plot page, I'll get it ready to cut. You know, I'll weld these pieces and weld this piece here, and get it ready to cut. And then all I do is I grab this and hit, or actually you don't even have to grab it, you just hit this AI Adobe Illustrator export button, and that'll send it out as an Adobe Illustrator file that Gerber will import. So if we go to my export folder, it's going to be in there. And in Gerber, you just say import, and then you just say cut. So it's pretty straightforward. It's not too bad. Other programs, Alan Datagraph has a driver that's direct.
You want to batch cut it. So this is what we ran Gerber cutters for years. We would take all our 2x1s and 3x1s, put them in one file, export them as AIs, and then brush them all together.
But yeah, so there are cutters though that have a direct cut feature. So the Allen Datagraph's a good one. GraphTech has a driver. Suma, some other like that. The APD doesn't have a driver itself, but you can just export out as a PLT file and then open that up in their cutting program, and then cut from that. The idea, though, is that whatever you're going to create, you don't have to be worried about it not cutting. You're going to be able to cut it. I know some people that I talked to had actually had this for a while, and they hadn't been using it. I'm like, well, why haven't you used it? And they said, well, because I wanted to be able to cut it to my cutter. And I said, well, why haven't you started using it? You can send it to your cutter. Don't be worried about that.
What was the third-party program again?
It's called CoCut. I actually am a reseller for CoCut now, so typically it's $2.99 for a CoCut standard license, but they've given me the ability to offer it at 50% off this month for the show, so it's $149.50 right now, if you get it through me. Yeah. And I didn't actually install it on here, I probably should have, but no, that's a good question. Okay. So yeah, cutting, good question. Anything else? No? All right. Well then, what I want to do is show the Memorial Designer customers what's new, what we're coming out with. And some of this stuff you've already seen, some of it you may not have. We do yearly releases, big releases. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
So we do big yearly releases, and the focus that we did on this one was your granite fills. Being able to add favorites is a big one. Another one is being able to rename your stone colors to actually match how you name them in your brochures or whatever else, so that if you're hovering over this and it says Bahama Blue, it's actually gonna, match up with your own coloring and whatever. And so if I click on Gem Mist here, I renamed this Gem Mist, but if I right click on it and say settings, I can name it to whatever I want. So I actually call that American Black HD. Not only can you rename it, but you can set a a custom swatch size for it, so that when you apply that color, it's going to apply it at that grain level, so that if you've got a variegated granite that doesn't tile very well at a 12-inch tile size, you can do a larger tile size, and it would be unique to that specific color. So you can set custom tile sizes now for each granite. You can set your own name for each granite. You can set whether or not you want it to be a favorite. And you can also reorder the favorites. So if I were to just throw in a bunch of favorites here, then if those are the 5 colors that I want to sell, but I want this one at the top of the list, you can just drag and drop that to wherever you want it to be in your list as far as favorite colors. You can resize your swatches so that they, you can fit as many or as few as you want on there. Once again, the stain color, you can choose different colors. We just barely added this today because Rob was asking for it, right? And so it's not perfect yet, but it's coming. So you can change your stain colors that way. One of the things that people asked for, but I think actually it was you guys asked, how can I tell what color is currently applied, right? I know that that's American Black because I just did it, but a week from now, if I open this file up, am I going to know that that's American Black? So you can actually click on it now and come down here and say, question what color this is, and it will pop up and say, this is American Black HD. So that you know what color that is. You can go back to your grayscales down here now, and sometimes in the past, you had things that filled in with colors that maybe shouldn't have. If they filled in with a polish when they shouldn't have. You can actually tell that to forget now that it was a polished color, and so it won't remember that anymore. So that's a new feature there.
I have a question back here.
Yep.
I should have asked this earlier, but as far as kerning goes, is there an easy way to kern while still keeping the text editable?
Yep. So if you look at Howard right here, there's too much space between the W and the A, right?
Yeah.
So there's different ways of doing it. You can kern on an individual character basis, so you click on this little thing next to the A and you can move it in and out, wherever you want it to be. You can click on just everything and bring it in or out like this. You can click on these 3 and move them over. Depending on how much you've got your nudge set for up here, you can set your nudge for a certain distance. So you can click on those and move them over 1/4 of an inch every time you click on it. So you can do that, but it's all editable text. So if I come back here and type in a different name, it's going to be editable. This particular font is one of our really old fonts that we created back in 1995, and so the kerning isn't very pretty on this one. If we were to switch over to a Monument Lettering Center font or my new MD Roman font, Brandon has worked really hard on his fonts to make the kerning consistent and nice and kern correctly. So he's done as much as he can, and if he finds any pairs that aren't kerned correctly, or if you let him know, he'll fix those kerning pairs in the font itself, and that way it is automatically going to kern for you. But if you need to manually do it, you certainly can. I personally don't like to manually do things over and over and over again. So if you find anywhere that you're like, well, between this W and this A, it really needs to be in a little bit. If I can see that that's the case, then I'll change it on my end, and so that it will update. If it's just kind of personal preference, then you can change it on your end with a font editing program.
Cameron, go down to a date and show it how you can turn on a full date.
Yeah, so on a full date like this, you can just click and drag like this. You can also hold shift so that you're only doing between date, month, day, and year. Or just pull it in like
full justify your date.
You can also full justify if you really want to, if you want both of these lines to be the same line or you can actually force justify too. I don't really ever do this, but I think you can. Oh yeah, July. Maybe I'm just making it up. Yeah, somehow it works. But yeah, so you can edit that.
If they're on the same, if they're in the same text, you don't split it into two lines, you can do it.
Oh, is that what it is? That's right. So instead of doing that, if I hit enter and type in July 13th, 2010, and delete this one, then those you're gonna force justify to the same length. See, I never do it, Rob. You guys from the UK, huh?
We do lots of words. Because we play around with words far more than you guys do.
Yeah, so good job.
I noticed your punctuation is all out too far, can you just grab the...
Say it again.
Your punctuation is out too far, can you just grab the
Yeah,
punctuation?
yeah, you could just grab that comma and bring it in, bring it out, however you want it to be. Or if it's, you want it to come under your 4 or whatever, yeah, you can grab that individual character. You can grab both of those and move them over.
You can move them up and down too.
You can move them up and down on accident or on purpose. I mean, I can move that anyway. I use keyboard shortcuts when I'm moving things around, especially control on the keyboard, because then when I'm moving it back and forth, it's going to stay in line with where it's supposed to be. So control constrains to a straight line. If, in order for that to happen, you start dragging first in the direction you want it to go, then you hold control so that it knows to stay in that general axis. If you go up and down first, then you hold control, it'll constrain to the up and down. And shift sometimes constrains as well, but I typically use control myself.
Can you drive the line?
Can you
Drive the line.
like tell it how long to be?
Yeah, so let's say you got a 20-yard stone, and I don't know, what was date to be in 20 inches? Because I don't know what the future's going to be on date number 3.
Yeah, so right now, there's not a quick tool to tell it how big you want that length to be. What I myself do is I just look at, right up here, it tells me that that's 8 inches for how long that is. And so if I drag it out and I look at the size, it's just going to tell me that that's how long it is. So it's going to give me a length. It's 9 inches now. I don't currently have it set to do that, and I know that there's that is an option in some other softwares. And so if it's something that you really are used to and want that functionality, then we'll work on building it to work that way. Right, Shel? Yep.
On it.
Do you have to group your lines to change the spacing between lines? Or how do you, let's say you're working on a single line now, family says, oh, I want a little more space. Okay.
If it's already existing text inside of a panel, okay, you can grab that text and you can come over to the spacing section of your Docker, and you can just say, I want 3/4 inches instead of 1/2 inch, and hit apply. And it's going to space that, but it's not going to evenly space it in the panel itself because it's ignoring the panel. It's meant to ignore it because if you have it like on a book or something, it's not going to redraw that book for you. But what you can do is you can either delete the panel and start over, go back to standard panels and just tell it I want 3/4 inch here, and it would then rebuild that for you. Or you can, once you have it respaced the way that you want it, you can, distribute it then between your panel, to match you up and down and that sort of stuff.
Can you also bring setup lines in and just lock it to setup lines?
Yeah, so if you had guidelines like this, or an up and down guideline or whatever it happens to be, you can come in here and align it to that guideline. Is that what you're referring to?
The setup lines, the lines you pull in from the side, that type of setup line.
What I do now is
Just snap to the guideline?
Yeah, snap to the guideline.
The baseline of your text will snap to a guideline, the top part of the text won't.
If you grouped all your lettering, and you had X and Y guidelines in there, you snap to the center of the guideline. The center of that grouping to the process.
Yeah, you can bring down a guideline, take your group, and snap to, actually I don't. Do I have snap to guideline? I have to enable snap to guidelines in order to do that, but then you can snap to that guideline. Yeah. So you got your grabbing from your center and go up here to the edge. Yeah.
And it's more efficient to start with your longest line when you're making the panel, correct? We want to do that one first.
Yep, when I do my panels, if I'm gonna have a his and a hers, panels, and I know that her name is Carolina, whatever, and it's gonna be longer than his line, I'll start with hers first, so that when I build my panel, it will go ahead and build that way, and then I'll grab that one and mirror it to the other side so that I can swipe and type in his text because his name is Bob. That way you know that you've got enough room. You can actually also grab all of your panels at the same time. So if I took that panel and this panel, I could change those panels, to double line or single line, all at the same time. And, that might change them. Yeah, good question. What else you got? Go ahead.
When working with families, do you usually do the design first and then add the color, or do you allow the color first and then?
I personally do everything in grayscale first. The reason being is it's going to be faster for me to do things in grayscale first. Once you start, if you do color, so if I go ahead and add in a color right now, and they decide to add in an emblem, it's not going to come in with the Bahama blue, so it's just going to come in not frosted, or not colored. And so I don't do color until the very end. And another reason for that is, once you've got it, it's not but a couple clicks to choose whatever color you want. And so I will usually say, okay, so now let's talk about colors. Do you want to see it in gray, or do you want to see it in something a little bit nicer? Do you want to see it both ways? And let's decide on what you want to do. So I wait till the end just because it's easy to do, and that's kind of when I start talking about money.
And that's Cameron's approach because he's a designer. You're a salesperson. Okay, I ran a shop up in Wyoming. We were 90% gray when I first got there. At the end of my first year, I had it 50-50 as far as gray to color. And by the end of my second year, we had flipped it all the way over where gray was 10%. So we were able to increase our revenue the first year by 50%, the second year by another 50%, just by showing color.
I don't do that. It's a good question, though. Yeah. Because that's also a good way to get a return on your investment is by increasing your sales, showing different colors and different options. Nothing? You're good? Okay. I thought I saw one more hand. There you go.
The yearly releases that you have, do they automatically come up, or is there some way that we get them,
They don't automatically come up. I notify you when there's a release, and then you can install it or not install it. Most people are going to go ahead and update, but you don't necessarily have to. No, that's a good question. Currently, the software actually times out every year on the 1st of February. I don't do any sort of dongles, so I don't. You don't have to physically plug in a dongle in order to use it. The only copy protection that I have currently is that it just times out every year, and so before it times out, you're supposed to contact me before it times out. Some people wait till 5 days later. They're like, "Hey, I can't use my software." Sorry. And then I just send an update to get you back up and going.
So they've had it, but we've not used it yet, so they have to notify you they want all the new, anything, like, we want this year's new releases? Or, since the year's already passed, you know, when do you release it, right at the beginning of the year? Or-
I usually release in January before greening.
So like it's February now, so.
Yeah, so we're a little behind schedule this year.
Uh-huh.
A little bit, not too bad.
But we would have to, like, we probably won't start using it until, say, May.
Uh-huh.
But the new releases, the new options aren't on that yet, so.
Yeah,
we
I
can-
mean, in May when you start, you'll start with the latest, and then, you know, next May, if you want to, update for the next year, you can go that route. Yeah, great question. Let's see.
You're still doing new stuff, right?
Yeah, new stuff.
So
What else you
SKUs
got?
for granite colors.
Oh, SKUs. Anybody in here actually do like 3D looking stuff? Anybody? Austin, you ever do 3D stuff? Of course. SKUs. Okay, so I'm gonna open up a file. I don't even know if I've got it on here. So one of the features is you can type in SS3D and hit open. If it doesn't have it on your machine, you can say yes, please go find it online and download it, and it'll go to the internet and download that file for you if you don't currently have it. So that just pulled off the internet from wherever it was and brought it in. So when you've got a picture at an angle like this and you apply a granite fill, it currently applies that granite fill for the base, not skewed. And so you have to manually take this and skew that down this way and down this way. It's not a huge deal, but I find that if I'm making a brochure or I'm making, you know, some sort of, if I want it to look nice and look real, I'm gonna wanna, you know, skew that the right direction. In the past, whenever you changed your color, it would revert back to the original not having a skew. But now, if I change the color, it's going to remember that skew and keep it in there. So that's a new feature, is that the skews will stay based on how you have that done.
How do you put text on that?
So if I wanted to add text, what I would actually do is I would start with a straight-on view. Okay, so I'm going to go with 24 by 15 or whatever it was, and build my text like this. So I'm going to go MD Roman 1 inch. And I'll just throw in a couple lines here. What's my birthday? December 26th, 1979. I am 39. And space that out. Do my contour for, you know, around here. I will apply a panel to that. Oh, one of the things is with panels, if you're trying to keep it to go around that circle, you want to not recreate your panel so that it follows the circle. Okay. So I've got my text and my panel in my front view, and what I would do is I would copy that to this view that I'm trying to do the side view at. Copy, Control-C, paste. And all you do is you grab the one that you've got your front view, and I've got this particular one already set up as a perspective template. So you just go to Effects, say Copy Effect From, and click on this, and it will automatically skew it to the same amount. So that then if I fill it in with a color, it's going to come in and look, you know, at that same angle. If you don't already have templates set up like that, I've only got a couple that are automatically set up that way. But you can add perspective. If I go back to this one, I could, on the fly, do the same thing. I'm just going to go to Effects, say Add Perspective, and then I just pull it whichever way I want it to match up with, and pull it in that direction so that I can put it at that slant. So CorelDRAW is not a 3D program, it is a 2D program but you can effectively do pseudo 3D type of stuff so that you get that effect. And that's what the skewing of the fills is for. What else was new? Remember, Shab?
So yes.
What's that?
I said it was your list.
It was my list. You're right. Yeah, I think that's pretty much.
You can try and go dark if you want, it might work.
I don't personally like dark, but if you wanted to change your screen theme to black instead, that's one of the new features, is that the Docker itself will go to a dark layout, or before it stayed white. These boxes are still white, but yeah, if you want to work on a dark theme. I only do this when I'm working in bed at night, when I don't want the screen to be super bright. But, yeah, good question. All right. Any other questions?